Okay, thank you everyone for joining today. So we're going to take you through an experience of partnership that was facilitated by AWP. So the format of this session is we did some pre-recorded interviews, which we will show, and then this will be followed by a live online and in-person discussion. So you're free to ask questions and learn more about this partnership. So essentially the partnership will share how the Vietnam water efficiency improvement in drought affected provinces, known as WEIDAP, partnership was shaped, AWP's role, and what skills and complementary roles were important to its development. So I will just introduce the speakers that we have. So we'll have from the Asian Development Bank, we'll have Cho Nu and Sanath Ranawana. Cho is joining us live from Vietnam. We also have Rob Rendell from RMCG, who will be, you'll hear, and will be joining us for the question and answer. We have AILSA Willis from the Lower Murray-Darling. And unfortunately, we will not have Mr. Miên from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, but you'll hear him in the interviews. And also, we're very lucky to be joined today by Ms. Dung, who's working at the NGO IDH in Don Dung in Lam Dong province in Vietnam. So to move forward, we will start with some initial thoughts on the evolution and the start of the partnership from the Asian Development Bank. Moving forwards. Can I get some help? Okay, well, maybe I'll just introduce what we're going to be starting with. So some of you joined us for the partnership workshop yesterday. Can I have a show of hands who was in that workshop? Thank you. And as the ambassador for the environment mentioned this morning, AWP is built on relationships, and we're really interested in what makes a good partnership, and want to know how is this different from an exchange of information, a contractor or consultant relationship, or even a helpline. So as part of this line of inquiry, we've asked some of the people that I've mentioned who've been involved in this WEIDAP project to reflect on what role partnership or partnering played in what is otherwise a fairly technical transfer of knowledge through Australia and Vietnam on pressurized irrigation pipelines. So Vietnam has various pressures on its agricultural water resources, including, well, as we all know, climate. We heard a lot about that this morning. Increased urbanization, changes in the use of water sources, among others. And this switch to pressurized irrigation improves water efficiency and reliability, but it also helps the farmers make the transition to higher value crops. So in Vietnam, this was transition to dragon fruit, coffee, mangoes, and peppers. And Australia has been on a water journey for many years and has experience of managing agricultural water under conditions of scarcity. So there's many lessons that we can take from Australia and see how they can be transferred and some of that learning taken to the Vietnamese context. But the story of development, as we heard this morning, is rarely as simple as just adopting new ideas. People and systems and institutions takes time to change. And we heard that a lot in the workshop yesterday. And the course of this change is never easy. It can sometimes be difficult for outsiders to influence or predict. So a question in this session is, does a partnership help on the human and institutional side in this process of knowledge uptake and adoption? And AWP has found that partnership involves a sustained and trusted relationship between two sets of actors which have a common technical interest. So we're going to take you through this. We'll see how this plays out in our case study. This is the story of how the involvement of AWP in the WEIDAP program started from the Asian Development Bank's perspective. So we'll start with this video.
And my role in the WEIDAP at the time was as the project officer was responsible for preparing this project.
Hi, my name is Charles. I'm a senior project officer at the Vietnam Resident Mission at the Asian Development Bank. During the WEIDAP preparation, I will be the project director from the side.
So can you tell us how did the partnership between Australia and the Asian Development Bank on WEIDAP originally develop?
It started off with an event which is called the AWP Australia Learning Week, which was held in December 2016. And by this time, AWP and the government of Vietnam had started the preparation of the WEIDAP project. And so when we were asked to participate in this event, as the AWP chose to identify the team from Vietnam to go to attend this Australian Learning Week. And that was an extremely useful exercise. It was very informative to the Vietnamese colleagues, also the AWP, I would say. And as a result of that 1 week's learning experience, the colleagues, the Vietnamese contingent who came back to Vietnam and said they would like to continue to get support and exposure from the Australian experience, particularly experience in the Murray Valley basin. So then we AWP facilitated the arrangement for a team, particularly one individual whose name is Rendell, for Rob to come in and support the AWP's project team who were preparing the WEIDAP at the time. So Rob came along. He attended an event, which was a workshop at a very early stage of the project design, where we were preparing for the overall project scope. And through his intervention, I would say the project took a fairly significant turn towards a more modernizing of irrigation systems. Until that time, it was being designed more or less as a conventional irrigation system with some modernization elements, but Rob's intervention changed it, I would say, transformed that, I would say, and it became a much more modernized system for to cater to farmers who are growing high-value crops, which is what was happening at the time in these 5 provinces. So that intervention went along for Rob had a continuous input to the design of the WEIDAP, and then as a follow-up to the original learning, we then had another specific learning experience again in Australia with a team of, and this time with a very more specific team of people involved in the WEIDAP project, and that was in October 2017. We took the team back to Australia and showed them very specific things on pipe irrigation, SCADA, and so on. And so through this whole experience, I would say that WEIDAP completely became an extremely innovative project which supported climate resilient water for climate resilience and water. I would say the important thing to point out is it's providing water on demand to farmers who are growing high-value crops.
Next question is for the child. What has been the structure of the partnership between Australia and Vietnam? What organizations have been involved in Vietnam?
issue of agriculture and rural. But of course, we have an opportunity to get to know AWP is mainly of the Sanath. Sanath, engage the government as a account with the AWP through not only the learning week, but also through NECC at the ABB in so where we get to know Rendell, and fortunately that Sanath and Chow, we are working so close together. Sometimes we have some differences at home, but we all look forward to achieve and do something for Vietnam. So we all have all of the differences, and then we convene the Vietnamese government that the partnership with AWP will be through the WEIDAP design. And then we got a strong support of the Prime Minister who in charge with the WEIDAP together. So I think that the structure of the partnership is quite smooth and productive for the WEIDAP, Vietnam side and AWP.
Tell me a little bit more about the level of uptake in the Vietnamese government of from WEIDAP, and how has Australian expertise supported this?
So at the beginning, many people doubt about the using water supply system for agriculture, and then even at the on-farm level, at the final level. And then since Rob arrived in Vietnam, he had an opportunity to share Australian experience with the very much bottom approach from the community visit several command area, talk to the farmer, to understand the situation, and then come up with the TRTA result and who ADB would put it in design the project. And then we also talk with high level that director, the director of the agriculture and rural development, and even the Ministry of Agriculture. And then particularly after we have a trip to Australia, we brought a very important person who witnesses the project, like chairman, vice chairman, and also some local personnel to understand more about how Australia modelizes the irrigation system or how to apply. So I think that the Australian expertise help transform the design concept of the design is right.
Is the government's view of the added value of Australian partners in the program?
And I'm so proud to be a project director of that project. And then, we not only, because under there are so many elements of the relaxation from the management level, delivery level, and also at the farm level. For example, like on the management level, we also see the water assessment, water allocation, so important. And then we also want to pick the private sector to be a part of the team to form kind of public-private partnership with co and university system, where the water traffic is so important. So the ministry already are working and with your support, we came to Vietnam, and we brought a team with team. We do quite comprehensive assessment and also produce a manual for water traffic. And up to now, the government still expect AWP to have further support, similar approach for the second phase of WEIDAP, with also the proposal by ADB Sanath. And last week, the Prime Minister, Miễn Nguyễn, chaired a national meeting to review some kind of mobilization, and he decided that we will need a little bit deeper analysis before making a national program to adopt the irrigation modernization similar to WEIDAP systems of all type of.
Sounds like that the partnership has changed and evolved and adapted over time and been quite successful.
And you know that even nowadays, when I'm looking for AWP at AWP staff, I still have to be a part of that. So now I still contact with somebody or colleague from AWP and colleague from the Ministry of Agriculture and people. It's their opportunity to improve the irrigation system.
Okay, so here this video shows you a little bit about how the partnership was initiated and the different dimensions between the Asian Development Bank, the government of Vietnam and the Australian partners. Just for some context, Cho was actually previously working with the government of Vietnam and now is working with ADB. So he's been able to provide that bridge very effectively between the different partners. Okay. So you also heard about the uptake of Australian ideas and how the influence of Australian experts was able to be brought in to help with the design of the program.
This is Sanath.
Oh, sorry.
And I'm a principal water resources specialist with the Asian Development Bank. And my role in the WEIDAP at the time was as the project officer who was responsible for preparing this project.
Hi, my name is Chow. I'm the senior project officer at the Vietnam Resident Mission of the Asian Development Bank.
Okay, so next we asked the government of Vietnam for their perspective on the partnership. So next you're going to hear Mr. Miễn Nguyễn, who's the director of the WEIDAP project, and he's from the Central Projects Officer under the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. And he gave his views on the assistance from Australia through AWP, how that was being used. So you'll hear him, but he's speaking in Vietnamese, and his colleague Kim Chung Vun, who also works for Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, helped with translation. So.
Tell me a little bit about your role in WEIDAP.
Tôi là được mắc từ Việt Nam và tất cả.
I was assigned by Mark to be the director of WEIDAP projects, level to coordinate with the ADB and the 5 project provinces for implementing the project. It needs to our government and ADB partners. It is also to facilitate the project to be carried out most effectively and brought into use, achieving the project investment objectives. Can you tell me how are Australian partners supporting Vietnam irrigation? We highly appreciate Australian partners to support Vietnam on irrigation, particularly in engineering aspects in applying piping systems in irrigation works. How has the knowledge and experience from engaging with Australian partners being used in the different provinces in Vietnam?
Đối với câu hỏi này thì tôi xin trả lời bạn như sau.
Knowledge and experience have been from Australian partners have been used in the central highlands of Vietnam. For example, in Rendell and Drought in another AWP funded project, and also applied and used in our projects, in the WEIDAP project, covering the 4 provinces, Drought, Đắk Nông, Miên Nguyễn, and Khánh Hòa. Water partnership irrigation experts introduced the new concept. First, it is not really new in water supply for domestic use, but in irrigation work, we are not quite familiar with this concept, nor is it largely introduced. not only introducing the concept, but the AWP innovation efforts also provide us the design concept and certain materials of the design. They also visited the site to work with us and also explain to us the engineering aspect, how to apply the in our specific context and the local conditions. They will working and closely with our local design consultants, sharing their knowledge and guiding how to achieve the optimal design options by reviewing the design of the local designers. So it helps us to improve our design skills and also the knowledge. So I really appreciate their support and assistance. Thank you.
What have been some of the main challenges in the partnership with Australia, and how have these been addressed?
Actually, we also have been facing with a certain challenge in applying the new knowledge. And in this WEIDAP project, you see that it is the first time for the project policies that like the pipeline or water delivery in innovation works. Therefore, they got not enough knowledge or experience in designing, construction, or management and operation in future also. In addition, not only the technical, we have not yet the technical guidance or the regulation or the guideline in the operation and maintenance of the pipeline, so that the introduction of this new concept has been encountered with the technical difficulties in the project and also in the operation in future. And in the WEIDAP project, you see that when the project was prepared, nearly completed, then the AWP joined in. That means here the AWP joined in the right left in the project preparation. So it caused big difficult for us to incorporate and to reflect the new concept in the design. So we success that in the coming project and in future, the AWP, if possible, could join in the earlier stage when we prepare the investment project. By that time, they can fully understand the new concept of the project, as well as it should facilitate the operation and the implementation of the project. Thank you.
Okay, so here you hear about how AWP joined, and as I mentioned, they did join in the process of design, but in the workshop yesterday we heard a lot about co-creation, co-design. So it is important for partners to be engaged at an early stage and bringing those ideas and thoughts. Mr. Miên also outlined how the exchange with Australian partners helped to introduce and promote the concept of pressurized irrigation piping systems within the Vietnamese context. So this approach of pressurized water supply had been mainly used for domestic water supply in Vietnam. So there had to be a shift in acceptance and understanding to design, implement, operate, and maintain pressurized systems for irrigated agriculture. So bringing the Australian context and experience and looking at how elements of that could be applied to Vietnam was helpful for the government. So I will get it right this time.
Can you tell
Nope.
me about your role in WEIDAP?
Okay. Right, I did. So besides the sound engineering and technical approach, what other factors contributed to this change? So we have another short clip from the government.
Personally, I really appreciate working with you. Yeah, and yeah, we appreciate the working and cooperate with Rock News and Ailsa and Rendell.
Okay.
So clearly there's a personal connection here, which is at the heart of this story. So, so we've heard from the government of Vietnam, we've heard from the Asian Development Bank, and so now we're going to hear from the Australian partners. We'll hear from Rob Rendell at RMCG, who led on the Australian side for WEIDAP, and his views about the importance of building relationships, growing ideas, and collaboration.
Personally,
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the key relationships that have been developed with Vietnamese colleagues and how you've been able to maintain them over time, especially with COVID?
Yeah, it was, well, the first key person was Yasmin Sadiq from Asian Development Bank, who was developing. Out of that relationship, we did a little bit of work, but then on the learning tour, there was several people on that learning tour who we got to know and were heavily involved. The Sanath, Ranawana, and Dr. Cho in particular, plus a couple of others, came on that learning tour, and they've been instrumental right through in leading and developing the relationships. And even though both of them have moved on, Sanath to another part of the Asian Development Bank, Sri Lanka, and Cho has actually joined the Asian Development Bank from MARD, even though they've moved on, the next generation, in those cases, we developed relationships and have maintained it over this long time. We also developed relationships with the researchers in the institutions, with a key designer who came out later to Australia, plus the provincial chairman, etc. So it's at all levels that we got to know people and worked hard at maintaining those relationships and trying to understand what they wanted, not what Australia thought they needed.
How about Australian colleagues as other Australian partners? How have they been involved?
Well, when we brought people out to Australia, when we decided that seeing is believing, we engaged with a number of key people along the Murray in the Riverland and Sunraysia, particularly Central Irrigation Trust and also Lower Murray Water. In particular, responded and hosted the visitors, and two key people. One was Ailsa Willis from Lower Murray Water, and the other was Rob Hughes, who at that stage was working with Central Irrigation Trust. They showed interest, but they also demonstrated their expertise, and I've been able to take both of them over there with me a couple of times, and their practical knowledge has been absolutely valuable. And the key is identifying what is it that WEIDAP expertise wanted, and then whereabouts in Australia was it? And in this case, it was with a couple of organisations. My focus has not been to find work for our company or for any particular company, but rather to identify the key people who have the expertise and get them involved, and they've been fantastic. And luckily, we just made a visit before COVID with them.
Okay, so you see here that Rob played a role as a broker, drawing on his wider knowledge of who the right people were to speak to in Australia and who to engage. And it was important that they had practical experience in running and operating irrigation schemes. So next we're going to hear some reflection from Ailsa Willis, one of the other Australian partners who works for the Lower Murray Water as a hydraulic modelling engineer. And she's just going to talk a little bit about the evolution of the partnership over the past 2 years, despite the COVID pandemic.
Can you talk a little bit? How have you seen these partnerships evolving?
Well, the partnership started as an AWP initiative, and I wasn't aware of this continuing on before I became involved. The partnerships done by AWP were involved in response to the changed circumstances, the big one being COVID-19. Rendell was the main driver of that evolution. The planned trips to Australia have been replaced by repeated online contact, sharing suggestions and ideas, partners providing feedback to and from. Hopefully, the visits to Australia will still happen. I'd like to think that the interaction that's currently occurring in place is being helpful to partners in Vietnam and Sri Lanka. But the greatest benefit may come from doing both. The current online engagement and future visits. After all, these demonstration projects are just the start of a rollout of modernised irrigation systems. There's always going to be room for adaptation and improvement as modernised systems become widespread.
Okay, so you heard through these different videos, we've got a couple more, that how the partnership evolved, starting with this learning tour. There was different exchanges between Australia and Vietnam in person, and this really laid the foundation and built the trust, which enabled that continued engagement when we couldn't meet in person. So we're going to go back to Rob and hear about some of the different challenges that have been addressed, including navigating the differences between Australia and Vietnam, gender awareness, involvement of the younger generation, and the importance of timing.
The key one is to understand how the system operates and how the levels of command, making sure the right people are involved. In Australia, we're a little bit more laid back. We sometimes don't follow the protocols correctly, and we need to understand how it's important to get approval. And if you haven't got approval at the right stage, then you can't change it later on. That's got us caught a couple of times. Being very gender aware, one of the difficulties in Australia is that many of the people who understand some of this technology were around back when I was younger. It was a very male, white, pale-faced engineers doing the work, and now the older people can be male in Australia, which is why it's been fantastic to have AILSA involved also. But from these countries' point of view, they're also got a lot of older males, etc. I think is absolutely critical. For example, there was another small project that was struggling to develop some pressurised system, and we were asked if we could provide some support. It wasn't on the side of the project, but spending an extra couple of days in Hanoi to support that project, which has now become the demonstration project. Just timing and responding to their needs and where they are is in each of the countries is absolutely critical. And it's not about us saying, well, we've got the new Murray-Darling Basic Plan and we can come and show you how to do it all, but rather, what is the issue that you're addressing at the time, and can we provide some input in that part of the journey? Trying to reach out to younger people, you need to do that carefully and not to avoid to follow the protocol. The COVID's been a challenge, and what's happened is that it's far easier to just forget about engaging with Australia. So many times I've had to prompt, be persistent, be really, saying yes we can, yes, despite this you can do it. Otherwise, I think the project could easily have finished up with no, just sort of withering away to no input from Australia. What I think's been good about WEIDAP, both good and bad, we've had about 8 different projects, 8 different designers involved. Each one of them we've had to convince that their old-fashioned canal understanding doesn't apply to pipelines. That's the biggest challenge. The engineers who are canal designers want to design the pipelines the same way. You've got to suggest to them, no, this is more like an urban design. And changing that 8 times can be challenging, but at the same time, it's no better than doing it yourself 8 times.
Great. So just a point in regards to that other project, we're going to hear a few words from Ms. Zung, who's with IDH. So we'll hear from her shortly after the final word, which is from the Asian Development Bank on how this partnership has opened up new opportunities.
Add another little twist to this whole partnership. So as a result of working in Vietnam and working closely with Joe, plus also with partnership with Australia. So we are now planning between Joe and myself, planning an exchange visit between Sri Lanka and Vietnam to learn from the experiences of WEIDAP, for Sri Lankan colleagues to learn from the experiences of WEIDAP and other similar projects. So the partnership's expanding. It's good.
So it's great to have this outcome, as Sanath just reflected how he has moved on to Sri Lanka and he's been able to bring this experience, this partnership between AWP, the Asian Development Bank, and the government with him. And it's actually a great outcome for partnership that started very small in a chance conversation during a field trip. So these pre-recorded video interviews give an idea of the journey of this partnership and how these different organizations involved in the partnership have worked together to address and overcome challenges, and many challenges that haven't been foreseen. So we're fortunate to be joined today by Ms. Zung from, as I mentioned, she's from the NGO IDH. And to provide some context, as Rob mentioned, in the process of implementing WEIDAP, the Asian Development Bank WEIDAP with AWP, there's been an ongoing pilot project, also supported by AWP. And it's being implemented by this NGO IDH to construct a replacement supply system to a small cooperative. And it's producing extremely high value agriculture in central Vietnam. So the AWP provided inputs to revise the design and get a modernized system constructed and installed. And this system has been used as a demonstration during the WEIDAP detailed design process, as there wasn't any option to travel. So it enabled the designers to see how something worked in practice. So I hope Ms. Zung is on the line, and she's going to provide some her reflections and thoughts on the pilots in applying modern irrigation and then also water pricing.
And another.
Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So hello, my name is Dương Phạm. I'm currently working for IDH Vietnam as Senior Program Officer. It is my pleasure to join the workshop today to share a little bit my thought about how I've been working with AWP and especially Mr. Rendell. So it is my pleasure to know Mr. Rendell since 2018 when Australian Water Partnership was invited by ADB to support the development of Vietnamese law on hydraulic work, where IDH and myself is also a member of the working group. We came to know each other more when Mr. Rob Rendell, Mr. Rob Hughes, and Miss Ailsa Willis contribute much on the Đơn Dương project, where we support to upgrade the pumping station for 10-year cooperative that serve water for around 200 households, roughly 400 farmers. So in this project, there's a quick background that ADB has invested in the construction and installation of the equipment at the pumping station, why we, in collaboration with Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, support the development of the water pricing attaching with the newly installed pumping stations. So very quick background why we really appreciate that Mr. Rendell coming into the project, that the farmers in the areas have they cultivate the main crops are vegetables, so they have a very high income compared with the average farmers in Vietnam, with around an average earning of 150,000 US dollar per year per hectare, and they need to irrigate the water every day for the vegetable in a year, even in the rainy season. So considering that with high level of income, high demand of irrigation, Mr. Rendell has suggested us that if we can improve the level of irrigation service that provided by the pumping station currently, by the 10-year cooperative currently, then we can help farmers to improve their income, and by shifting to other high value crops, for example, flowers and other high value vegetable. And that ideas has received a lot of support from us and support from especially from the farmers and the cooperative. So by the end of the day, we decided to change the system from the, as you already mentioned before, is this, the original idea of this concrete canal to the pressurized irrigation piping system. But of course, even though that we have a lot of support, we still have to face a lot of challenge because we are one of the first pilot of such modern irrigation system in Vietnam, but I think that is also in Southeast Asia. So we can only, let's say, do all of the construction with the support from the AWP team, and especially Mr. Rendell, Mr. Hughes, Miss AILSA, Willis, and other team members. They have been supported us to develop the, let's say, redesign the system and have to draft the water pricing scheme. And they have been participating in many meetings with technical staff to have design the system, explaining in very detailed, for example, the size of the pump, how many pumps they needed, size of the pipe, how the pipe should be set, and what will be where, all of those technical things. And for the water pricing, they have been collecting all of the electricity costs, and they support us to, recalculate the water price that should be go with the pressurized irrigation piping system. And COVID doesn't have the situation because we cannot organize in-person field visits where the technical expert can go and give us many advice. We need to do many meetings online where we do the live stream, like, we take a video, we go to the field, we take some videos, we live stream with Mr. Rendell there, and make questions and we answer, and we have to solve the system, solve the different difficult things. I'm very grateful because Drought and the team are still with us, even though it's already 4 years. And it cannot be denied that we have learned a lot from the expert, not only about the technical thing, but also about the spirit, the news ideas, the initiative, and all everything. So my appreciation for Mr. Rendell, Mr. Hughes, Miss AILSA, and other team for all of the great contribution for this. If there's anything, I hope that we can share all of these lessons learned to a wider experience, let's say, audience in Vietnam in some technical learning session facilitated by AWP and Rendell. For example, we can share the lesson how we do it technically, how we do it by human manually, and how we cooperate with each other in COVID situations. So I think that's it for my reflection, and thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to share.